Okay. Can I get a thumbs up? Is that, you can see that? Okay, great. Okay. So the strategy paper and mentors. All of you, as part of the applying to this program, have put forward a proposal for a strategy paper. And so, and that was agreed upon with your leadership, with your Auditor General, as an area that was of significant importance to your audit institution that you want to, improve. So we want to spend this time starting to prepare you a little bit more about what the process is for that paper and who these people are that are called mentors at GAO, what role they'll play, et cetera. So let me go to the next slide. So first, talking about the strategy paper itself. Okay, so essentially what the strategy paper is a plan describing and proposing improvements to your Supreme Audit Institution. It really is a foundational part of the program. Every fellow who's graduated from our program has completed a strategy paper. And in fact, you may have graduates, alumni from your audit institution that you could ask if you wanted to, if they had done a paper before in the process that they went through to get there. And it's also helpful too for your knowledge, sort of what were prior topics, especially if it has something to do with what you're working on, just to make sure you're not you're adding on to the good work that was already done. So and so we use that as a key way to transfer the knowledge and skills that you gain in our program to your SAI. Importantly, so our program, as you know, runs from April 2nd to July 2nd. And so to get there, to get you to completed product that's ready, to go home with you, we're going to ask that the papers be submitted by June 24th. And we have an email, the email that we normally use that you would submit to that and to the GAO mentor that I'll talk about later. But just put that key date in your mind, June 24th, and I'll have additional dates as we go along. And we can, of course, share these slides with you too, and so you have the information. It is a requirement to finish the program, to graduate from our program, to complete the strategy paper. So you will need to have that done. Okay, so in terms of some technical guidance, the most concrete thing is length. We look for the paper to be around 15 to 20 pages in length. We had found that in the past, some fellows did much longer papers, and we find that, in fact, at GAO, when we look at our own products, we're trying to shorten them because people don't have time to read, essentially, especially busy people, leaders, et cetera, policymakers. So keeping them short is actually better to contain, and hopefully that's a little less work on you and less work for the group, the people that you'll be working with at GAO. So keep that in mind about that length. What the paper should generally cover. So 5 key things we're listing here. So what's the importance? Why is your topic important, and why is it? Why are you working on it? What is the challenge? What are you trying to achieve by this taking on this topic? It should have some recommendations. So that's key to be able to bring back hopefully some change that will make improvements at home. It should talk about the key stakeholders that could be impacted by your recommendations. So we get into this a lot in our coursework about others, that when you have to make change, who you have to work with is almost as important as what you're trying to do. These could be your work colleagues, your management, staff that you supervise, et cetera. So just thinking about those people and how they fit into the equation of making your strategy paper work. And then we want you to cover the potential challenges to implementing your recommendations. And these could be anything from, budgetary constraints, staffing limitations, or just resistance to the change. People have done it this way for decades and they don't want to change. Why should they? That kind of overcoming those types of challenges. So recognizing that up front, and then we want to think of ways to overcome those or give you tools to be able to overcome those challenges. And that gets to our fifth point, which is strategies to mitigate the challenges. By the way, when you're here, you'll have access to a whole catalog of past strategy papers from the fellows from past years. They're a great way for you to just get familiar with what does a final paper look like, kind of give you a few examples, just the general structure of it, the setup, that kind of thing. It also, you could search by your topic to try to see if your topic has been covered, whether it's with your organization or another SAI with a similar topic. You'll be able to see that, and we can help you navigate that too. But I just want to let you know we'll be able to give you those examples. Okay, so in terms of the kind of this a little bit more on the structure of the paper itself. So we expect that the paper would have an executive summary up front, in particular summarizing the recommendations that you're making. And this would be a one-page summary. We would like for it to have an introduction, describing the current situation and how you would like to see that situation changed. What are the expectations of your auditor general and leadership? And what's your vision for your SAI that will occur because of your proposal? If we do this, what you expect to see as a result? The key kind of heart of the paper then would be the development analysis sections. So this is really where you will bring to bear a lot of the training that you'll get through our program, a lot of different courses and materials that you'll receive. And of those, which ones relate to your topic, um, and how would you like to try to introduce those, if they, or perhaps alter them somewhat to fit, or think of ways of how you could use that to implement at home. I think I've really been impressed with this next step, which is people coming up with an actual action plan. With some people even put in dates, which is great. Like some kind of plan, like how do I want to roll this out, and what kind of timeline is it going to take to get this done? And so a list of activities with those to implement the change would be very beneficial. And again, we have some examples of those in the even from last year. I think a couple of our fellows did specific action plans with dates. So then you'd want to cover how the changes will be implemented and how they would be captured. How would you basically, understand that you achieved the change, so you want to think that through, like what will be markers of success, how did you, it's just like when you're doing an audit report, how do you know that the agency that you audited is improving based on your audit recommendations? So having measures of that success as well. And then what support or assistance will be required for you to implement and maintain the change. That's important as well. If, having that up front and asking for that is important, and being realistic about it too. Your organization, what they're able to do. So within that, thinking of what you could achieve in terms of support that you would need. And then finally, we talked about this a little bit, resistance. What resistance do you anticipate, and how you will mitigate that resistance? And so we found from listening to a number of our prior fellows that this can be a pretty significant challenge for fellows trying to implement their paper. But and therefore we have actually classes that relate to that and that will help you work through those. And then you'll have your conclusions and recommendations. So you might think of like, well, what have been the results of these strategy papers over the years? Um, and I already mentioned that the past strategy papers are posted for you to use and for our GAO staff to use. We do ask you don't send those out to others because they're, really the property of that SAI, because some of them, detail information about that. But for your use and the use of GAO staff, that's fine. We have followed up with graduates on the results of the strategy paper. And so, for example, several have implemented new audit and internal control standards, developed strategic plans, established performance or forensic auditing units in their audit offices as a result of their GAO strategy paper. In fact, we had a fellow from last year whose topic was about communicating the results better with their parliament and having a better connection between the SAI and parliament. And as a result, we understand that his office his SAI has set up a new office to deal more directly with that issue and work better with parliament. So that's awesome, and we're so happy to hear that. And those are the kind of success stories we like to share because you really can make a difference. Um, and so we want to help you get there as much as we can. And then another big sign, I think, of our results of these of the program overall and the strategy papers is that just that the graduates have moved on to leadership positions, higher than where they are when they started, including Auditor General. I think we have four or five current AGs around the world who are graduates of our program, many deputy AGs, and a number of government ministers. I mean, it's hard to track with 640 plus graduates. We don't know exactly where everyone went on to, but there's definitely good examples of where people have moved on to higher things and really use this program as a springboard, I think, to achieve that. So we're very proud of that. Um, and in fact, we're working with Kennedy, we are working now on um, a little bit more comprehensive survey to our alumni to find out a little bit more about how their strategy paper went. Sometimes, as you know, just like at GAO, we give agencies 4 years to implement our recommendations. We check every year on the status of the implementation. It's the same, strategy papers are not going to happen overnight. The recommendations are not going to be implemented as soon as you get home. It's going to take a time to get those done, depending on what you're trying to do. So, but what we do have a plan to check back and get a little bit more comprehensive information about where that has been, and so that's exciting as well. So we'll come back and check with you in a couple of years too. So. Okay, so I think this is going to be important for everyone to know just what the overall key dates for the strategy paper. So again, we start in 3 weeks from today, right? April 2nd. So that's 3 weeks exactly from today. We have scheduled an initial fellow mentor meeting, and I'll tell you more about the mentor in a moment, but they're a key person at GAO that's going to help you with your paper. Those are scheduled for April 9th and 11th. They're like 1-hour meetings where this person, the mentor, will come meet you. You probably go out to either to their office or go get coffee or something, and just sort of get to know each other, and also start talking about your topic and and uh, and and your strategy to move forward. So the next key date will be the first draft we have is May 16th, the second draft of June the 6th. You'll get final feedback provided by your mentor on June 13th, and then the strategy paper due date is June 24th. We then ask that everyone, since you've done all this great work, that you present the work, right? So, and I think that would be good for you all to do. So that those presentations will be on June 26th and 27th, and then you graduate on July 2nd. One thing I want to note, and this we'll certainly talk about this more as we get into the program. The dates, in particular, the dates of the drafts, so the first and second, et cetera. We have some flexibility there. We realize that people may be at different stages, and as long as we're communicative between me, you, and the mentor, or the team and you and the mentor, we can have some flexibility on that. And this has come up over the last couple of years, and I just don't. The overall message to you all is it's good to have a path to work towards, to have key dates to move things along, but we realize it needs some flexibility, and we don't want everyone to feel really stressed out at any point, or stressed out, period. We want this to be a good experience, so we'll work with you. But these are the dates we're going to go with for now, and then work together. Okay, so you in your applications, you of course submitted your topic, and then you submitted a kind of like a paragraph on the topic, and sort of why it's of interest. We then asked you all to prepare more of a detailed outline, and I sent out guidance about that. Thank you to those who had already turned in that outline. I appreciate that very much. We do ask that everybody turn it in by March 19th. This is important because we provide this to the mentor, so that when you have that first meeting, they're aware of more about your paper and can hit the ground running, as we say. So if you could just keep that date in mind and provide your outline, I would appreciate that. Let us know if you have any questions about it. But basically, the outline is just to get you to start thinking more about that topic and the structure of the paper, and identify questions you want to answer out of it. What are the key questions you want to be answering while you're here during the program? And I would say we already talked about providing to the mentor, but the final point there was also, while you're still at your SAI now, to the extent possible, you could share that with leadership or with your auditor general, just to make sure you're aligned with they are aligned with that, your thinking on it. So we just want to make sure leadership is. I mean, we know they support the topic, they signed off on it, but to the extent you could share that as well, so for their awareness. Okay, support. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things here, and you're going to probably need some help with this too, because this is a big undertaking. So I've mentioned mentors a lot, so I want to take a few minutes now to talk about what the mentor is. So each one of you has been assigned a GAO mentor. A GAO mentor is a senior GAO staff member who will serve as a professional mentor. They're generally of the management level, or we call some of them our senior executive service, which is a term for the U.S. government for the kind of higher level folks who manage a large group of people. They are people who have really great experience, a lot of auditing experience, some in particular with the topics that you all are working on. So they're just a great professional resource. They've worked on many, many audit reports, and they're currently, working on audit reports. That's their main job. But but that's who you'll be assigned, or you have been assigned. And they can provide, their job is to provide you, really assisting you in developing the strategy paper ideas and details. So the typical mentor's duties are going to be, so at the beginning, helping you develop your broader topic, or sometimes actually at the beginning, they can help you scope down. I think oftentimes fellows come and it's a little bit, the scope can be large for a project. So the mentor may work with you to scope it down so that you can really get achievable results within the same topic. You wouldn't, change topics, but help the scoping issue. But they can also help identify resources, so they are very aware of documents, websites, et cetera, at GAO that they can get you to help prepare your paper. And very importantly, they're a networking resource, so they can put you in touch with other GAO experts. So um, they they are very good at that. We find that after just a few weeks in the fellowship program, some of our fellows have a lot of meetings scheduled with different people at GAO. So you'll be off, when we're not in class, we build in time for you to have, we call it independent study. You can use that time to work on the strategy paper, also to hold these meetings and to network with GAO people on the topics. So, and then finally, a big role the mentor plays is they review and provide you feedback on your drafts. So those are some key types of roles that the mentor plays. Before I move to related coursework, one last thing on the mentors. I met with all the mentors and provided them as well, sort of an overview and answer questions, etc. One of the things I suggest was beyond the initial meeting, which we talked about, you have an initial meeting that's already scheduled, and you'll learn that when you arrive here. Sort of a regular meeting or to meet weekly is a good idea to keep a good touch, to keep a constant communication with your mentor, but via something like a weekly meeting. Um, just to touch base is a really good idea. Uh, I've told the mentors and I've asked them to be a little bit more proactive as well about making that happen and making sure you're getting what you need. So, but I would just tell that to you as well as you could be proactive and suggesting that. Um, and just we can talk more when you arrive, but I wanted to point that out. Okay, so related coursework, we have a number of sessions that I think are going to be helpful for this process. So we have sessions that are related to the strategy paper topic. So I know some of you have topics that relate to quality assurance, quality assurance and oversight, some on internal controls, and a whole bunch of others, obviously. But we have uh, sessions that are related to those, and not only courses, but we also bring in executives from various parts of GAO to talk about their areas of expertise. And so, for example, just to use quality assurance as an example, I think in the second week of the program, we bring in our chief quality officer to talk about GAO's quality assurance system. So it's kind of a nice way, if you're working on that topic, you get that right away, right? You're starting to learn how do we ensure quality of our products? What is that process? So you'll get that right from the head of that organization. And then secondly, as I've mentioned, we have courses on change management and resistance, two separate courses, one on change and then a follow-up on resistance management. And this is because we found that it's so important to be able to understand how to implement change and how to deal with the resistance to that change. So I think you'll find those very helpful as well. We have I think it's now a 1.5 day course on strategic planning led by our team that is actually puts together GAO strategic plan. We look at your strategy papers as a little strategic plan, right? You're bringing a plan to implement a change. So I think that course has a lot of relevance to what you're doing, and can also help give ideas for your SAI's strategic planning process. And then you'll have access to, in addition to all the in-person training you'll have, we actually have you'll get access to a library of on-demand training. Um, and we can, in the past, we've had some assistance to get even a list based on your strategy paper topic of some courses on demand that we think would be helpful to you. And we'll try to do that again. But we will make that available to you. And actually, for the on-demand training, you're able to keep that even after you go back home for a period of time. You'll have access to that. Because we've noticed too, some of the fellows are like, oh, this is great, but there's so much going on here that I haven't had a lot of time to do this other on demand. So we get that, we understand it, and we've been able to provide it after the program is over. So we should be able to do that again. Okay. Um, and I promise too, I'm going to leave some time so I've given you a lot of information. I'm happy to answer your questions at the end of this presentation. I don't think there's too many more slides, but this one's an important one actually. And so in addition to the mentor, you get a bonus here. So we have two groups of people at GAO who really assist our audit teams tremendously. So one are called communication analysts, and the other are called visual communication analysts. The communication analysts, who we call CAs, they basically our GAO staff, they help develop and produce written products, provide instructions on the development of the message and the writing. So we find the audit teams do a great job of collecting all this information, but when you actually try to start writing it, that's a whole different job, right? It's like to get it in a clear, concise way that captures the audience and makes a good push for whatever change you want. Well, that's the CA is really helpful in doing that. And I mean, they're everything from editing line items to reorganizing stuff or making suggestions. They realize it's your product, but they're helpful at that, those types of things. But like I said, with structure, grammar, the style, and other technical aspects. Um, and in particular, to be really helpful with looking at your draft products. So they kind of work with, if you want that assistance, it should be available, and they work in tandem with you and your mentor to kind of as a little a team to get this done. The visual communication analysts, they GAO, I'm not sure about your SAIs, but we've moved we're pushing our staff, our teams much more to be more use graphics and visuals versus a lot of words. So because we find that those are easier to convey a message, the message often sticks a lot better if you have a good visual, and you can take visuals out and put them on different things like social media and different platforms to get your message out quicker. So that's what the job of the visual communication analyst is to help develop those ideas. For you all, the VCAs, there should be a couple of them that will make themselves available. They would help you conceptualize graphics, but they're not expected to actually create them because that can be a whole other a level of work. But they would help you think it through, come up with some ideas, and I'm sure give you some guidance on how to implement it. So that's another option to assist you in this process. Nope. Okay, that was my last one. So let me obviously stop there and give you guys a few minutes to see if you've got some questions for me. If you want to raise your hand or just come off mute, whatever you prefer.
Mark, good morning. It's Lori.
Hi, Lori. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I have a question about the outline that we're supposed to hand in by the 19th, turn in on the 19th.
Yes.
Not clear. I know that we wrote what we handed in when I applied for the program, but as for the outline, is there an example, perhaps? How many pages is the outline supposed to be? Do you want questions jotted down, or you just want us to begin writing our strategic paper, like start it? I know it's not going to be completed by the 19th because of the extent of the pages that it's supposed to be. But what should we include in that outline is what I'm not clear. I'm, can you help me there?
Sure, Lori. Thanks. Good question. I would definitely point to the email that I sent with the guidance for the outline. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to be sort of no more than 2 pages. So to keep it kind of short,
Okay,
bulleted lists is fine. Definitely not writing the product. The idea here is to just kind of expand a little bit on that paragraph you wrote in your application and look in particular, look at questions you might want to answer while you're at the program. And yeah, it's just really to get you to think a little bit more on those lines, not on the lines of actually starting to write the paper. We're not there yet. But it's hopefully it's not a huge undertaking because it's relatively short, but it will give the idea there is to make you think a little bit more about like, what is this? If I had to outline this paper out and I have 2 pages, kind of what would it look like? It's also to help your mentor. The more they know and can kind of on the ground, like before you even meet, the better they'll be prepared to be like, okay, I understand the direction you're going, or I'm not sure where you're going. It'll just give them either one or the other, so that you can have a really fruitful initial discussion with them, an initial meeting, and start getting a real plan down. So that's the idea behind it. Um, I don't have the specifics on that guidance right in front of me, but I could check that if that would be helpful and circle back with you.
thank you very much.
Sure. A good question though. Thanks for asking that. Any other questions from you guys?
Mark, another question.
Mhm.
Will the mentor be contacting us before we arrive? Because in one of the
No,
emails, I think you
yeah.
mentioned that they
So,
would be in touch with us.
yeah, this is where our terminology gets a little bit confusing. Excuse me. So there's the mentor who I've talked about during this meeting. They will not be contacting you before you arrive. You will just meet them once you arrive um, here for the program. There is another group of people called the sponsors. Um, the easiest way to say it's like sponsors equal fun, if that makes sense. Mentor, I hate saying mentor equal work, but they kind of mentors are more of the, work, we got to get down to work on this paper. Sponsors are like, let's have fun. That's the easy. If you were to put the two and have a word to go with each, that's how it's said. But more specifically, the sponsor's job, you'll have a person, they're called the primary sponsor. Each of you is assigned a primary sponsor. Their job is to just help you adjust to life in the United States, answer questions as simple as like, how do you use the metro? What kind of, I live in this area. Do you know if the Safeway a good grocery store, or I want this kind of food, where would I go? All these kind of things. What's the weather going to be like? I want to pack this, anything like that. And then they also get involved. There's another group of sponsors that actually plans activities. That's why I say fun as well, because they plan lots of things for you guys to do that are all optional. And they're outside of the work hours. So they're in the evenings or on the weekends. But they're things like going to a Smithsonian, going on a hike, going to Mount Vernon. They do all these great things. And again, it's up to you guys. But they do amazing things. And our fellows in the past have just had a wonderful time with all the things the sponsors do. And Brenda can fill in on that because she really manages that whole process. But so I'll turn it to her if she wanted to add some more on that.
No, I think you covered it well. I will say they are fun, but I think of them, especially during this time, someone that can help you transition and answer your questions from where you're at to here. So at the end of the day, they are more helping you on the personal side, while the mentors are on the professional side. But yes, it is true everything Mark said, so I won't add. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Lori, for asking.
Does does that get to your question then, Lori?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And the sponsors will be, if I'm not mistaken, they will be contacting you prior to arrival. They'll reach out to you just to see if you have any questions and things like that. So that will happen before the program starts. Um, Anastas, I see your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mark, for this brief explanation or presentation about the strategy paper. We are we are already started. Uh, uh, it is a good presentation. Congratulations for this slide I've prepared for this topic. It shows clearly what we are going to do and we are supposed to do during the preparation of strategy paper. Uh, for the key dates you presented,
I love.
you start key dates. I saw the first draft and the expected timeline, the second draft and the expected timeline, then final feedback. The final feedback will be both for say for first and second, or after even the first draft, we will receive the feedback from the mentor. That's what I would like to know.
Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Anastas. Appreciate the question, and I think you're asking about the final feedback, and if that's for everything, or if there's other feedback provided along the way, essentially. And the answer to that is yes. You're not just getting feedback on June 13th, like you'd hear nothing and then all of a sudden you get feedback. You'll get feedback along the way on each draft and in your conversations. So the mentor will be constantly giving you feedback and assisting you along the way. The reason we have that is because we wanted to have a cutoff for when the mentor needs to get back to you so that you can, in time for you to complete everything and be done. And that's why we have the final feedback in there, just so we make sure it's clear to them and you kind of when that is supposed to be submitted, because then you'll need time based on that final feedback to implement any changes that they're suggesting and have the final strategy paper ready to be submitted on June 24th. So bottom line, you'll get lots of feedback throughout, but that's just a specific one we want to mention to help guide everybody. So I hope that answers the question. And I will go with, looks like G10, you had a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mark, for the wonderful presentation about how we'll be working for the strategy paper. And I have one question about, beside this strategy paper, as far as I know, the schedule will be very tight from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? So what we are gonna do from 8 to 5, can you tell us about something that the schedule between 8 to 5? It will be might be some in-class activities, lecture, or how we will be doing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, G10. Yes, so we will, first of all, our program, I think roughly runs from about 8:30 to 4:30, so it's a little less time than you were mentioning. Excuse me. We have a variety of activities that we do. So I don't think it's necessarily like every day is like a cookie cutter, the same thing. And it will actually change over time. So in your first couple of weeks, we spend a lot of time just well, first of all, we have what we call onboarding activities. So we just have to get you security, a little security briefing. You have to get you a GAO laptop. We issue you all a GAO laptop for your use. We get your office, kind of like getting you settled in, right? You got to get your offices, etc. We then have a number of people from across GAO come in to talk about their different units. We do an overview of the federal system in the U.S., just how the system of government works from the federal to the state to the local level. And so that's the first couple weeks is just kind of orienting you to GAO. So there's a lot of, like, I call them like kind of shorter sessions, but a number of those. And then we also and then as we transition, I'd say into about the third, fourth week, we started to get into what we call more of our training courses. So those are longer. Think of anywhere from 2 hours to a full day to even some are multi-day courses. These are things on like our first one is an overview of just developing the GAO engagement. Engagement is the same thing as an audit, right? Developing our audit, which kind of walks you through our whole process. And we have classes on evidence. We have classes on data literacy, report writing, et cetera. So all those are in the main part of the program. We also provide you time within our schedule to have the independent study, like I said, to meet with mentors, to work on the paper, to research, to look through all the materials that you're getting, et cetera. And then we do some cultural exchange as well within that. So we're going to do some similar things to what we're doing here, but more cultural related in terms of like the About Me slides, but things like sharing. We have the cultural fair. We actually take you to some of the institutions of the U.S. government while you're here. We have a day at the World Bank. So it's a variety of things that you do. And then kind of, I'd say the third part of it is, as we get towards the end of the program, we give you back a little bit more time because we know you're finishing, you've collected so much information and you're putting stuff together, having meetings, et cetera. So we try to take it off the gas pedal a little bit. So we give you a little bit more time, a little less trainings. But you also at that time get meetings with GAO executives, including the Comptroller General. We take you to some key management meetings at GAO, so you can observe those, how the live meetings. You guys sit in and listen to those, how GAO deliberates its processes with that, from the Comptroller General through all the management of GAO. And we always aim for this, and I'm hoping it works again. We also take you guys to see a GAO person testify in front of Congress, because that's where it really comes to life, right? That's why we do our jobs, because they call us up to testify about the report we worked on. And our witnesses, GAO people, talk about the report and why these recommendations are important. So you'll also get to observe that and the real interaction between members of our Congress and executives at GAO. So that's just a little bit, but to give you a sense of what your day is going to look like, and it's going to be different. We also do build in time to just transition between things, because it can be overwhelming, right? There's so much information, and you're dealing with, a second, third language you're learning in. I mean, all these factors. So we want to make it so it's more easily digestible to you, that you feel comfortable in the setting. So but that's a little taste of it. Does that help, G10?
Thank you. So exciting.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yes, go
if I
ahead,
could
Brenda.
add real quick, I know that we say a lot, your day will be packed, your day will be packed or full. But maybe that's misleading, because what we want to say is it will be structured. Everything that you have to do for the program, you should be able, and we try to allow as much time as possible within the program hours. So none of it, you won't have to take it home. It's not going to be for homework. It's not going to be for you to have to do after hours or outside of the program hours. You hopefully will be able to do all of it. So we structure time so that you're able to complete everything. So you'll be able to anticipate what's coming up for the following weeks, or for the upcoming weeks, should I say. So that way you can plan ahead if you want to create meetings or do more work on your strategy paper or more work on anything else. But all of it is comprised within the work hours. I will say though, most times we will be out by 4:30, but there are some days that the class or the training session or whatever it is that we're doing will go into 5 o'clock. So I would plan for 8:30 to 5, be like blocked off, but you won't be staying in the office in the JO building. At least aren't required to stay. And if you want to, that's up to you. But you won't be in trainings or anything all the way till 5. But there are a few, they will take you all the way or up to 5 o'clock. That's
Thank
it.
you, Brenda, for the further explanation. Thank you.
Okay, we might have time for one last one, or we can break early. Up to you guys, but I'm happy to answer, maybe take one more question.
I have one question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, Bentley.
Thank you. Apart from the papers, are there other assessment that will enable you to graduate, like assignments or quizzes? No. Thank you.
Thank you, Bentley. So aside from the paper, completing the paper, each of the courses, there are some, we have some pre-works that have to be completed, before you take the class. You have to do some, so you'll have to complete that. And really, it's just the assessment of the instructors to make sure everyone is participating and being involved. So there isn't. Now, I'll be clear, we don't go through and mark up grades on all these things, et cetera. That's not the point of this. We know that we have a group of dedicated people that really want to learn and want to do this. However, the strategy paper is an important part of it, and it has to be up to standard, because you're presenting this to your auditor general. So you want the best quality possible. And that's why we have this team that works with you. So I think that in itself is a very good assessment of the work that you've done. And again, and Brenda and I are around during the program too, just to observe and see how things are going. So we want to make sure people are really engaging, and not that you have to be constantly asking questions. We're not like over your shoulder making sure you're talking the whole time. But we generally find actually that we have to, in a funny way, we have to stop our fellows sometimes, because they want to ask so many questions. We have to let our instructors leave, because they have job to do, or they have to go, to another meeting. So we're generally have no worries of people not being engaged or not, just kind of, sitting there and not engaging. So, but those are a couple of ways that we do assess, how you've done in the program. And our way of saying you're complete and you're done is we send that at the very end. We present the paper to your auditor general in an email, thanking you for your time in the program, et cetera. So that is kind of our official stamp of like this person completed it, and of course we have a graduation ceremony as well. So yeah.
Mark.
Great. So we're just at about at the 8 o'clock hour here in DC. So why don't we go ahead and take a little bit early break, and we'll come back at 8:15 DC time. So in about about 17 minutes or so, and we'll start up with the next session on the About Me slides. Let me do stop, and we'll see you all then.